Hey there everyone, my name's Alex and today I'm going to share a story I never thought I'd tell, let alone have lived through. It's about betrayal, family, and heartbreak. But don't worry, I got through it all and I'm here to share the whole twisted story. So let's start with me. I grew up in a pretty average family, not too rich or too poor. Just middle class folks who worked hard to make ends meet. My mom stayed home to raise me and my siblings, and my dad worked in construction. He was one of the hardest workers I knew. I'd always had respect for what he did and wanted to make him proud. I work as a software developer, not the highest paying job in the world, but it's comfortable, and I've always felt content with it. And then there's Sarah, my wife. She and I dated for 3 years before we tied the knot, and we'd been married for another 2 years since. We met through a mutual friend, and I remember how easily we clicked. We'd stay up talking about anything and everything. Movies, travel, our dreams for the future. I genuinely thought she was my soulmate. Our relationship wasn't without its challenges, of course. But what couple doesn't have a few bumps, right? I thought we were solid. Little did I know, everything was about to be shattered. Now, let me introduce you to my cousin, Ethan, and his parents, my Uncle James and Aunt Victoria. My uncle is a wildly successful businessman. He owns multiple businesses and has assets all over the place. He's easily the wealthiest person in our family, but he's also humble, the kind of guy who believes in family loyalty above all else. His motto has always been, family doesn't betray family. He was always there to help if anyone needed it. Then there's Aunt Victoria. Now, she absolutely dotes on her son, Ethan. Anything he wants, he gets. She spoils him to no end, always has. She's one of those moms who think their child can do no wrong. Ethan is, well, he's entitled, spoiled, and frankly, pretty arrogant. His parents' wealth went straight to his head, and he's never had to work for anything. I lost count of the times I'd see him treat people poorly or flaunt his money, just to make himself look superior. He's one of those guys who somehow makes every gathering about him. So, a few months back, Sarah started acting strange. She'd be glued to her phone, always smiling at something on the screen. I'd ask her what was so funny, and she'd just brush it off saying it was work stuff or just chatting with a friend. But then she started getting short with me, picking fights over little things. If I didn't do the dishes right or came home late from work, she'd turn it into a big argument. And slowly, I started noticing the way she did make these jabs about my job, how I wasn't ambitious enough, how Ethan was always doing so much better. It hurt to hear her say that, especially since I was doing the best I could to provide a good life for us. Now, around this time, Ethan was visiting us pretty frequently. He'd come over, hang out, and I noticed how Sarah seemed to light up when he was around. I didn't think much of it at first. I figured they were just getting along as family, but then I started catching these small glances, the little looks they give each other, and Sarah would always brush me off when I asked her why she was spending so much time with him. The doubts started creeping in, but I still told myself that I was overthinking it. Then, one day, Sarah forgot her phone at home. She'd left in a hurry and it was lying there on the kitchen counter. I'll admit, curiosity got the better of me and I picked it up. Right then, a message from Ethan popped up on the screen. It was flirty and all kinds of wrong. My heart dropped. In that moment, I felt a cocktail of emotions: shock, anger, confusion. I stood there, my mind racing. How long had this been going on? Was I seeing what I thought I was seeing? A few minutes later, Sarah came back to grab her phone. I handed it to her without saying anything, and she didn't suspect that I'd seen the message. I knew I needed to find out the truth, so I started paying closer attention, picking up on every little sign, every suspicious detail. Then, one day, I decided to put my plan into action. I told Sarah I'd be going on a week-long work trip. She barely looked disappointed. In fact, I could have sworn I saw a flicker of excitement on her face. She said, Well, have a good trip then. Guess I'll get some time to myself. I could hear the hidden satisfaction in her tone, and it stung. The next day, I packed a bag and left. But instead of going to the airport, I rented a room at a motel nearby. I waited for about 30 minutes. Then I walked back to her house on foot, not wanting to tip her off by seeing my car parked nearby. As I approached, I saw Ethan's car parked outside. My heart started pounding. I took a deep breath, unlocked the door with a spare key, and stepped inside quietly. The first thing I noticed was an unfamiliar pair of men's shoes lying near the living room. My stomach twisted. I knew those were Ethan's. I could hear faint music coming from our bedroom and muffled voices. Two people laughing. I felt like I was in a nightmare. I pulled out my phone, wanting to capture the truth on camera. Slowly, I crept toward the bedroom, holding my breath, steadying my shaky hands. I pushed the door open just enough to see them. There they were, Sarah and Ethan, completely naked and wrapped up in each other. My stomach churned, and a part of me just wanted to throw up. I could feel a surge of anger and betrayal, unlike anything I'd ever felt before. I'd loved her, trusted her, and here she was, in our bed, with my own cousin. I must have made a noise, because suddenly they noticed me. Sarah gasped, scrambling to cover herself, while Ethan just looked at me and, get this, smiled and winked. He wasn't even sorry. In fact, he looked almost pleased that he'd been caught. But when he saw I was recording, both of them freaked out. Then, Sarah did something I never thought possible. She reached over to Ethan's discarded pants, pulled a gun from his pocket, and aimed it straight at me. My mind reeled. I hadn't even known Ethan carried a gun. Without a second of hesitation, Sarah pulled the trigger and the bullet tore into my arm. Pain exploded and I stumbled backward. She fired again, but this time I managed to get out of the room, slamming the door behind me as she screamed, cursing me out. I somehow locked the front door from the outside with my spare key. My arm was drenched in blood and I could barely stay on my feet. I staggered out of the house, but I didn't make it far. I collapsed, and everything went dark. When I woke up, I was in a hospital room. My parents and Uncle James by my side. They looked shaken, worried. My dad told me that the police had come and arrested Sarah and Ethan after I passed out. Apparently, Sarah had even tried to pull the gun on the police but was quickly subdued. Aunt Victoria didn't believe a word of it at first until I showed them the recording. Uncle James was furious and decided to disown Ethan right then and there. Aunt Victoria tried to plead with him, but he told her, if you stand by him, you're choosing him over this family, and that I won't forgive. The whole thing went to court. I filed for divorce and sued Sarah for attempted murder, assault, and infidelity. Ethan faced charges too, not only for his involvement with Sarah, but also for possessing a firearm without a permit. Turns out, in our state, it's illegal to own a gun without proper registration, and Ethan hadn't bothered with any of that. The judge made it clear that Ethan's recklessness in even carrying unlicensed weapon was dangerous and added additional penalties to his sentence. In court, Sarah demanded alimony, but the judge immediately dismissed it, calling her actions a betrayal of any marital trust. She couldn't take it, she lunged forward, screaming insults, and even tried to attack the judge. Security had to tase her to stop her. As for Ethan, when the judge delivered his sentence, he turned to me and tried to apologize. But I just looked at him, and with a calm I didn't know I had, I said, "You're dead to me, Ethan. You always will be." After it was all over, Uncle James stood outside the courtroom and told Ethan, "You're disowned. Don't come back. I never want to see you again." Ethan just stared, stunned, realizing that he'd lost everything over his selfish actions. It's been months since all this happened, and I'm slowly putting my life back together. It hasn't been easy, but I've got my family's support. If there's one thing I've learned, it's that loyalty and trust are everything. Family doesn't betray family.